Opinions, viewpoints, and beliefs presented on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the management, the affiliates and broadcast partners, or the sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Cause there's nothing like a sleep all day and a party all night revolution. When there's nobody you own up to, take our head off this substitution. That's what makes you want to sleep all day and a party all night revolution. Come on, meet me on the midnight side. I'm your bad boy, got a solution. Once you drop that funky, stay alive. Here we go, make a vampire bitch and cry. Yeah. Yeah.
And good evening, everyone, and welcome to Scarefest Radio. The original broadcast date is August 16th, 2019, and I am this far from having a stroke, everyone. I am this far from having a stroke. We've got so much stuff going on tonight, and of course we've got the best guest we've had all damn year, Mr. G. Tom Mac. Welcome to the show, G. Tom.
Thank you, Wes.
And, but on top of all this, not only do they finally get me, the kind of guest we've been begging them to get me, then, everybody, if you're on the Facebook page, you saw they teased that we're going to have celebrity announcements tonight. We are, in fact, going to have celebrity announcements tonight. We actually have 5 of them that they gave me 15 damn minutes before showtime to make it official. We had this big long list and they were sorting them out, and it's just terrible thing. But I do have, we'll do them at the 15-minute mark, FYI. And I do want to take a moment to welcome my co-host, Mr. Chris Sutton, who is on the road in like a Motel 6 somewhere in...
Yeah, Chris. I'm on the Scarefest video mobile unit. So we're here in DeKalb, Illinois.
I almost said DeKalb, Iowa, because once you get up there, I'm geographically stupid. So, but anyway, so yes, Chris was gracious enough to come on and help me pull this off. So, here's what all we got to do tonight, people. In the midst of having our really great guest, we have to, we're going to tell you about who's going to be playing the band at the VIP party. We're going to be announcing 3 of our film festival winners. We had 99 entries in our film festival for this year. I do not know how Brandon did it. I was going to help him, and I was watching them, and after I realized I have only watched about half of them, and he's already got all this stuff done. So kudos out to Mr. Brandon Griffith for however the hell he did it in the midst of everything else. But yeah, that we got all that stuff going on. Now, without wasting any more of his time, Mr. G. Tom Mac, he says I can call him G. I've never called anybody an alphabet letter before, so I'll probably call you G Tom.
Oh, come on, man.
I'm old and square.
An easy one to do. I wouldn't go around calling you W. That's a bit of a tongue twister, isn't it?
You know, somebody used to do that.
One syllable, Mario.
Somebody used to actually do that. But anyway, everybody, and of course, you know him. A Lost Boy story is what we're here to talk about mostly tonight. But of course, Cry Little Sister from the original Lost Boys movie. That is, I guess you say that's what put him on the Scarefest radar. Although it's not like that's all he did. Gee, I'm going to tell you, you're one of those. Your IMDb and your credit list is so full. It actually it makes for long reading, and I don't have that kind of time to devote to research for this show.
It's
but
right.
you've had a great
viewers
career.
Can go out and look on it. It's all out there.
Let's just ask the typical questions. When did you break into show business?
Oh dear, I think. I'm thinking that I was about 18 years of age, and I went from New York to Middle America, and that being in Colorado for a little while. This is after coming over from England, and I ended up in LA, and a producer took a liking to my work, and went in the studio and recorded some demos, and record companies go, "Oh, this is interesting. He's cool. He's a great writer, but he's a little bit too different. He's not pop enough or something, So over time, I just kept finding my voice, which I'm glad it didn't all happen at 18. And then a guy named Jerry Bruckheimer took a liking to my work, and I'm fast forwarding a bit here. And right within the same year, I got my first record deal, and I did a movie called Defiance, which was the first film I did music to. And it was sort of like the producers, Jerry Bruckheimer, they wanted like a Bruce Springsteen kind of vibe, and, that kind of tough man sounding guy, So I wrote a bunch of songs that were sort of in that vein, but they were mine, and I made my voice sound like Springsteen to some degree, somewhere between Springsteen and Tom Waits, which I've always had an ability to mock singers and things like that. When you play enough cover bands, you start to, you figure that, well, if I sound like Mick Jagger on this, they'll probably love that. If I sound like this one and that. But, I did that movie, and that put me on the map to Cameron Crowe taking a liking to my work, but my work as an artist, not trying to be like somebody else. But, and then artists like Kiss started recording my songs. They started finding out I was on the radar, One thing led to another, and God, the list just went on of other people covering my songs, and R&B artists like Travaris and people like that. I've always been sort of a chameleon as a writer, so that's been a great attribute to everything I do.
No, that's actually a great.
As an artist, I just started falling into the movie thing, and Fast Times at Ridgemont High led to 16 Candles, All the Right Moves, and just so on and so forth. And then that went into the 90s. Doing movies, and I don't want to go through the list. You can go, everybody can go on, and they can check me out.
You actually, you offered me a great segue there. One of the questions we have from the chat room you were talking about, other people doing your music. Now, of course, you're on our radar for Cry Little Sister. Do you have a favorite cover of that song? Because a lot of several people have covered that song.
Yeah, there sure has been a lot of covers of that song. Well, there was a band called Seasons Down, metal pop band. They did a cool job of it. And I thought, Alan Matson made it. He made it his own in a way, you know what I mean? He in true to form. I thought he did a good job as well, And it's hard for me to say which is my favorite because everybody has a different take on it. And mate, I wrote the song. I don't go like, well, mine's the best. My version is my most favorite or the best or whatever, but it is.
Now, I want to take a minute.
When I wrote that song, I had no idea that it would turn into the magnitude. Besides it being, selling over 23 million, downloads, copy, record, whatever. It's more than that now. But it was just, I read a script. I'd done a few movies before that. I read the script. I thought it was amazing. And it was the first time I'd ever read a script and just wrote the song from the script. I always got to look at the movie. And so this was the first time I ever did it by reading a script, by writing a song, reading the script for a film. And the rest became history, didn't it?
You obviously did it right. I do want to apologize to the listeners. Some of them were getting a little bit of a echo reverb. That's Skype, people. That's the price of live video. So just so you know, it's not in the studio.
Think it's my cell phone being on?
It could be. Yeah.
Should I turn it off then?
Turn that off, and we'll find out if that's what's causing it.
Okay. How's that? Is that any better?
That is much better. Come to find out, that's all it was.
Okay.
That we had actually two feeds going.
So if you want me to repeat anything,
I think we're good. It came and went. It came and went. Chris, over to you.
Okay, G. Like I said, I did some reading, and I told G before we went on the air that I wish I'd had about a week to research all the stuff that he has done. He's amazing bibliography of work musically and all these other things. It's just really cool. And I geeked out on a couple of things, I have to admit, but I'll get to that in a second. I saw this quote by Nigel Sinclair, who is a producer of Terminator 3, about you. And he said, G's a triple threat. He's a writer, he's a producer, and he's a performer. It's very difficult to find someone who can deliver all that. And I cannot think of a better tribute to a musician. And so that I read that, and that's really cool. Okay, I'm going to go back to things.
I worked with Nigel on a movie called The Banger Sisters, actually.
Right?
Yeah, he's a great guy.
That's cool.
Really
Yeah,
big advocate.
Yeah. I saw that, and I looked all at your body of work. I said, yeah, I can see that. I talked earlier. I said I geeked out about a couple things that I saw about you. One, that you played bass for Jackson Browne. So I may have seen you play. If you were his traveling bass player, I may have seen you before, because I was a Jackson Browne fan. I still am, but I saw him a couple times back in the early '70s, mid '70s, something like that. And
that was one of my first, in coming to America, it was my first real professional gig, because I was sleeping on somebody's couch, and the guy next door was his guitar player, and he kept hearing somebody playing piano every day. And it's the first time I land, and I had a bass, and he said, "Is that you knocking about in there?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "You want a gig?" I said, and I was out of money, and I said, "Sure." He said, "Well, I'm playing with this guy, Jackson Browne, who I kind of heard of it, and auditioned, and I got the gig. And it was a real, it was just a short-lived thing, because I was actually just in the beginning stages of working on my own career as an artist.
Sure. I mean, that's what way to break into that because, well, Redneck Friend was one of my favorite all-time songs, and he wrote that in a Holiday Inn in Edwardsville, Illinois, which is about 10 miles from my house. And so I've always thought that was cool. The other person I saw was Tommy Bolin, post-toasty guitar player.
Going back into my childhood, mate.
I know. I told you, I'm old. I remember Bolin. I remember all this stuff. And, Tommy was in after Joe Walsh left the James Gang. Tommy was in the James Gang, and then he went on to record Post Toasties and some other really cool guitar stuff, and so on.
He was. I really looked up to him. Actually, he was the first person to embrace me when I came over to America. He was very encouraging, is the word to say. Too bad he passed on.
Yeah, it is. It's a shame. I'll tell you what, I want to get into the musical part that you're doing, but it's time for us to go back to Wes.
Okay. Where is that voice?
And I'm coming. Now, everybody, we're going to talk about our sponsor first, the Mystical Fair of Lexington. Now, it's this weekend. The Mystical Fair of Lexington is this weekend. MysticalFairLex.com. It's Lexington's only monthly psychic and holistic healing arts fair, and it is where I go every month to continue my own spiritual journey, and it's also where I get my start. Now, each month they offer psychics, intuitives, mediums, a variety of metaphysical vendors, local artisans and crafters, and independently owned small merchants out the wazoo. The building is packed. All kinds. They sell dresses, people. There are people in there selling dresses. So there's just something for everybody at the MysticalFairLex.com, MysticalFairLex.com. That'll give you directions. But it's on Whipple Court. Employment Solutions Building, just off Newtown Pike. You can find it. Once again, MysticalFairLex.com. Now, we rushed into our commercial because, yes, I know you're waiting with bated breath. Everybody will turn it off after this, probably. But we did promise you celebrity announcements, so we're going to give them to you. I'm going to start with our celebrity announcements. So, first up, Tommy Flanagan. Alien vs. Predator. Gladiator. Braveheart is where I remember him mostly from. I vaguely remember him in Sin City. I think I remember that part. But Tommy Flanagan, of course, so they're headliner status dudes. We got Tommy Flanagan coming. Up next, Beverly Randolph. Beverly Randolph, you might remember from The Return of the Living Dead, Death House, No Solicitors, and Dawn of Five Evils. There's your horror chops. Some people are saying, we want more serious horror actors. There you go. She's got the history, she's got the chops in it. Also, now, let's go way back for this one. All the way back to Sleepaway Camp. I hope I don't mispronounce her name. Catherine Camhy. Sleepaway Camp, American Playhouse, Castle, Bones. But Sleepaway Camp, and there's a rumor, they don't have it posted yet, she will be doing a special photo op with Alyssa Rose. But what I'm trying to figure out, it's come up that they're going to be in costume, and the only costume I remember Felissa doing in the movie is when she had her head on a naked boy's body at the end of the movie. This could get ugly. So, just saying. But anyway, Catherine Camey is coming. Now, this one is one that honestly, people, Chris might remember because he's like our age, Chris. Gulliger. Oh my God! Chris knows him! Return of the Living Dead, Feast, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Last Picture Show. A long and storied career, and he is coming to Scarefest. And so if I'd had more than 15 minutes to get ready, I would have messed that name up. And finally, in our celebrities section, Tom Matthews. Tom Matthews, also from Return of the Living Dead. Now we get a freaking theme going here, at the third quarter, you might say. Return of the Living Dead, Friday 13th, Part 6, Blood Match, Return of the Living Dead, Part 2. Mr. Tom Matthews is coming to Scarefest this year. Now, on my non-celebrity type announcements, I also want to get in there. For the VIP party, we have Freddie and the Krugers. You can look them up on Facebook, Freddie and the Krugers, and it's spelled with Cruegers. Krugers. I don't know why they chose to spell it that way. I'm sure they had a good reason. Point being, now this is one I'm torn on. 80s, what do they call it? 80s party band. 80s party band. But let's just say their covers are not what a classically trained ballroom dancer like myself is ready for. Although I did like some of the songs they chose, they just weren't. They still weren't my 80s. I went to different parties in the 80s. That's obviously what happened. We had more. Didn't I have something else in there? Yeah. I did want to get out there. Best feature film. Our film festival this year is off the charts, people. Best feature film. Arctic. And it's spelled funny. A comic book obsessed serial killer's sinister plan to train his son to be his replacement is interrupted when the young boy lures a well-meaning stranger, Holton, back to their secluded farm, threatening to expose their family's terrifying secret. That will be our featured film for this year, our best featured film. Also, we've got best documentary. Squeefoo, yes, that is the name of it, Squeefoo. Fans celebrate the return of Joe Bob Briggs. Fans and colleagues celebrate the return of the beloved drive-in movie critic and writer Joe Bob Briggs in the short documentary with comments and from John Waters, Sven Gooley, Mick Garris, Joe Lansdale, and others. So that's two of them. Now, then we do have the short, and I didn't get the banner done for the short. When Raymond... Okay, well, I probably should take... Name of it's Songbird. Songbird is the name of the best short that we'll be showing this year. We're actually doing two rooms this year even. We've got one room we're doing features, and the other room will be nothing but shorts. If you just want to take a quick movie break. When Raymond, a troubled musician, discovers a magic camera, he uses it as a weapon to dominate and control women. After their initial response of fear and terror, the women work together to find their voices and reclaim their power. So that is my announcements for the evening. And I'll recap them at the end of the show. Now, back to my guest, Mr. G. Tom Mac. Now, G... and I get paid nothing. Nothing. Now, when you... Okay, looking back at Cry Little Sister, in this case, you said you read the script. Is there any way for you to describe as an artist? I can imagine writing a song. Don't get me wrong. Oh, I come up with a melody or the word. But I'm trying to think of how you would process that as an artist, either watching a movie or especially just reading a script to come up with how does one write a song for a script? What is the mental process you put into that?
Well, I mean, somewhat of a loaded question, but I guess I've got an answer since I'm doing an interview. It's absorbing everything. It's absorbing the story, and it's absorbing the characters. And yet, at the same time, I don't like writing a song that's telling the story of the film because it's already told. I'd like to write something that's right in the peripheral of the film. I've always done that, With the case of Lost Boys, I didn't want to, talk about blood or talk about the obvious things. But I did build my song around the loneliness of youth when they kind of going out on their own. And there's there's a very lonely factor to the vampire, always has been. And in reading the script, and it was an interesting thing, as I said earlier, every film I'd done up to that point, I watched the film, and you get a vibe of the film, and that way I was able to, absorb the characters that were on screen. In the case of Lost Boys, reading the script, I completely had another movie in my head as to what the characters look like, and the flow of the film, what the film would be like. And mind you, when I went to see, so what I did, I got up the next day. I remember reading it at night, got up the next morning, and I just had it all in my head. And I just started writing at the piano and came up with this, idea melodically, and then went over to my guitar to get, to see if I could go a bit further, getting another idea down. And got a vibe. And by the time I got up to my studio, about a half hour later, the song was pretty much getting complete. I was in the cab just thinking of ideas, and it just started to flow. And by the time I got to the studio, my mate had this drum sound in the other room going boom, 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 boom. And I said, "What is that, Michael?" And he said, just this thing I've been kind of messing around with drum things in here. And I said, "Can I have that?" And then, and I took it into my studio, and I started to work around the beat and the groove. And, he was a producer, and I said, why don't we, he said, "This sounds cool." And we went into the studio, and I said, "I need to make a demo because I got the song done, so I want to send it out." Because Joel Schumacher, the director, wanted to see if I would come up with something by just reading the script, because they were filming it, and he wanted to be ahead of the game and he was a big fan of my work. And so I created a demo, sent it out to him, brings me back 3 days later saying, "I can't believe that you won't believe how well this is working against what we're filming." And I said, "Okay." He said, I'm going to assemble everything in about a month's time, and I'd like you to come out so we could, place it in the film properly the way, I'd like to get your input. But when I went to see the film, when we started to go down that road, the film looked completely different than what I thought it was going to look like, So it was quite surprising. It looked good, but it was like a whole other movie in my head. So I don't know if I would have ever written that song had I watched the film. And so it's so much of my taking it in my way by reading the script. And mind you, the story was so compelling, and it was humorous, but I knew that I had to write something thematically that had this sort of just sort of whimsical and also haunting sound to it, but yet had a chorus that opened everything up and made everybody feel like, okay, I'm all right. And, this obviously, Cry Little Sister came much to the basis of Star and the relationship that she had with Michael and David. And I was riding that wave between that trilogy trilogy of those characters. But never once do I talk about vampires or blood or anything. It's all about the aura in which these, rebels without a cause were creating for themselves.
Everybody, we're going to take our next commercial break. We'll be right back with more of G. Tom Mac.
Yo, yo.
Do you feel lost in life? Do you seem to be stuck in emotions that are not yours? Is your home not the sanctuary it should be? Contact Spirit Mechanics, where they take a team approach to your metaphysical and spiritual problems. Spirit Mechanics specializes in aura cleansing, stone attunement, attachment removal, and house cleansings. Spirit Mechanics tailors their approach to your individual spiritual path and needs. Find them every month at Lexington, Kentucky's Mystical Fair, mysticalfairlex.com, or on Facebook by searching Spirit Mechanics, that's MECHANIX. Spirit Mechanics, for your spiritual health and well-being.
Now, if you've been listening to my shows for any amount of time, you've heard me talk to and or about Mark and Shelley James of Akashic Awareness of Elizabethtown, Kentucky. It's a metaphysical healing and learning center unlike any other Kentucky. Crystals, gems, and minerals greet you as soon as you walk in the door, and they got a dog. What could go wrong? Akashic Awareness, it's a place devoid of judgment. Everyone is welcome. Belief systems, where you come from. It's all about you. It's about finding yourself. Visit their website, akashicawareness.com, to find out more about them, find out all the different healing things they do, and to find out about their calendar of events. Coming up after, they'll be at the Mystical Fair. They take their rocks on the road, as they say. But they will be at the Mystical Fair this weekend. But coming up after that, you can go in for a massage Thursday, August 22nd, with Rachel Cintron. Tarot readings with Cassidy on Thursday. I don't know who's doing this one. Living in alignment with the law of attraction, coming up Thursday. Can I go to that one? I might make a trip to E-Town for that. I need to learn to live the law of attraction, because I'm attracting some BS right now, let me tell you. Energy paintings with a lot of stuff going on. AkashicAwareness.com, 328 Sycamore Street, E-Town, Kentucky. Now, back to our guest. I got one more, Chris, before I turn it over to Chris. So get G-Tom loaded up there. Very quickly, or however long you want to take, because the rest of the show's Chris's. Making the transition is a Lost Boy story. Now, is this your first Broadway musical? And even if it isn't, what led you to want to tell this? I'm going to call it, from what I've read, it's an addition to the story. It's not retelling the story or anything like that.
Well, I thought, first of all, long and hard about making it into a musical. I studied musical theater back in New York, so it was like for 3 years trying to understand it, not ever thinking I'd do a musical or write one. I just wanted to know the form because I love musicals. And just wanted to see how it was done, and I'm glad I did that, but nothing prepares you for actually doing it, which is what I learned when I started this thing four and a half years ago. And I spent the first 2 years really thinking it out because I thought, vampires haven't been that successful on the musical stage, with Lestat and I can't remember the other ones. But I thought with Lost Boys, its story had so much, the movie had so much great elements with its humor and with its horror. And I didn't want, the worst thing anyone can do is to put the movie on stage. I knew I had to tell a backstory, which nobody knew where David came from, and I've done that, and where all the other vampires came from. But the most important thing was where they ended up at and how they became mates and for what reason. And also the story of Lucy, the mother of Michael and Sam, played in the movie by Jason Patrick and the late Corey Haim. So I basically told that story as well, and the backstory to what that was, enabled in Act One. Act One starts in 1972, where David is adopted from Lithuania, from an orphanage, and Max runs that orphanage, and there's a couple from Nova Scotia that adopt David, and that's when it all kind of begins in Act One. I don't want to talk too much about what there, you don't want to give too much away. But I really, by the time I started to hammer away at the real story, I started to create songs that I thought would work, and that's when I presented it to Eric Falkenstein, the producer, and Evan Bergman, the producer, musical producers, who have fantastic reputations for being involved with the likes of Wicked, and the list goes on. So I knew Evan, and once I presented it, they said, this is a surefire, we think it's a win. We do want you to rewrite and do this. And I said, I know I've got to do all of that stuff. But they were taken by the actual story and what I've done so far with what's called the book. And so, but these things take a long time. When people talk about movies taking a long while, and they do take a long while to get made and done, this is double it with the musical, because there's so many 2 steps forward, or rather 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, So, but it's, some days it's maddening, but I'm grateful that I understand it, and I've learned so much by doing it. And I think we're onto something good. But one thing that we did a show back in 2018 where the producers came out here in LA at the Globe Theater, and I was playing not even the entire musical to a packed audience of about 2,500 people. And we have these wonderful screens, which you'll see at Scares Fest, with visuals from the musical that sync right into what I'm performing on stage. So it was really amazing to see how the audience responded to all the songs that they never heard before. And so we took it to Edinburgh, Scotland, did the same there, massive reviews, did it in Liverpool, and just been performing it. We just performed it in Dallas, Texas, and it went over incredibly well there. So I take great solace in knowing that it's actually working, as a piece of musical theater.
Chris, over to you.
Gee, I was thinking, so as you've done all of TV work and you've done movie work and have your own band work and things like that. Now somebody, okay, so to me it seems like the process is going to be different when you're writing a musical. And having played in bands myself and actually in community stuff and community musicals and things like that, I mean, the performance process is a lot different. How did you conceptualize that? The transferring what you'd already learned and putting and writing not just songs, but I mean songs that all are cohesive and all work together into a plot and to everything that's going on within the show. Well,
first of all, Chris, you have to have the book first before you can write one note of music. And that's what I did, first of all. I developed the story. Upon developing the story, I started to write the book, which implementing the characters and putting out the blueprint, if you will, to where the actual story is going from Act 1 to Act 2. And that was the first thing I did. And then I would be getting ideas along the way. Okay, sleep all day, party all night. I would start to mess around with a couple of different ideas for that. So I was writing music as I was doing it, but I wouldn't complete them yet. I'd had to figure out, what purpose does sleep all day, party all night have? And I found a purpose for that. What purpose is a song? I need a song that tells the story of Michael's love for Star and what that means to a sort of 19, 20-year-old guy and a 20-year-old girl, And so Long Hot Summer came about from that. And then David, basically being the more suave and, edgier one, I wrote the songs. His ode to Star, if you will, is a song called Star. And it's just funky. I don't know. It's sort of, I can't really explain it, but it's funky. It's almost like Wilson Pickett meets meets Black Keys or something, So that's a fun song. But it's basically saying, bitch, you're either with me or you're not, And it's got full of attitude. But my point being is that we got Frog Bro Hero, which is the Frog Brothers song, which is very Tim Burton, rather Danny Elfman-like, And it's very, it's just a fun piece of work, with the the Santa Carla townspeople yell frogs, and it's a good bit. And then there's songs like Be One of Us, and, there's everything pertaining to a lot of the lines from the movie as well, but also come up with Death by Stereo, which you could see on that little clip. And that's a fun piece as well. So, I mean, but all things have to work with what the story and the book is in order to be able, you can't just write a song and go, okay, that's going to go in there, It's got to be, you got to have the story first. And that's
makes perfect sense. And I agree with that. Don't complete the song, just kind of put little bits and pieces together and then wrap it all up when when it all gets cohesive and stuff like that.
Yeah,
do you ever think about...
That's not an easy job either. Because I must have written 3 different versions of Sleep All Day, Party All Night until I found the one that really worked for them being in the cave and just something that had an element that was edgy but yet had a sense of pop sensibility, or rather theater pop. And
I understand that how difficult it is to write I mean, I've written a couple songs myself, and I can't imagine. I can imagine, and it's very daunting when I try to imagine it. Trying to write all these songs, that we're talking about here, and people think it's like it pops in your head and you just write it down. It's a lot of tinkering and hitting this note and that note to see what fits and the tempo and does it fit the story. What you're doing, and it just must take an enormous amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, there are those times it just flies down out of the sky and you don't argue with it. It just came to you within 30 minutes. I mean, I wrote Cry Little Sister from beginning to end, I think 2 hours time. And by the time I finished it, I was still questioning it. And I would go, and my mate Michael said, "No, man, you've knocked it out of the park." And I'm going, "Really?" And it was an interesting moment when I stumbled on, I'm going to take Thou Shalt Not and have that be a choir. And when that happened, I knew, that had just fallen out of the sky. And sometimes it just works that way. Mind you, I drove everybody crazy with the production of it. That's a whole other story. But,
Yeah, I remember the first time I heard that song, the chorus just blew me away. It was like, the song was great, and all of a sudden that comes in, and it's like, wow, it was just so different. I just love that turn. So when you're thinking about, do you ever think about who you would cast in these roles? Now, I mean, obviously, Kiefer's too old to play, now and stuff. I mean, do you ever think about artists or actors or, performers that would do good in these roles? You have to tell us who, but I'm just curious if you think of things like that.
I mean, we're going through that process, as we speak, and it's kind of because where the musical's at, we're years away, and we've talked about Malcolm McDowell to be the part of Max, who's managed by my manager, and who would be a great Max because he's older, but yet he's got this British sort of swagger to him, and he's a fantastic actor, But we've been, a lot of new talent is what we're looking for. Things that are coming up, and we're bringing a whole new sensibility to it, and you want to be able to keeping true to the story, because you can't go too far away from what Lost Boys is. But it does have a new and freshness to it. And what we're trying to do is find actors and actresses, which we've been looking at, that have that freshness to them, And it's wide open. It's kind of wide open at this point, but we are looking, and and it's age. We have to equate the ages of where people are at. You know what I mean? Because you're a couple of years away, and these people have to do it for two. You're going to have a good, at least a year run with the main cast.
So okay, so once you get together and you cast it, what happens next? I've always wondered. You see the finished product. You see Hamilton and all these shows, and they're on and everything, but you don't see the pains and all these things that go along with it. What's the next step once you get everything together and it's ready to go?
So are you talking about what goes on during the process of getting to those next stages?
To getting it on stage.
Well, getting the choreographer on board, meaning making choices, which we've been going through, set designer, lighting designer, and an array of other production factors. But those three are key, and you have to book these people well in advance, and a friend of mine, her name is Natasha Katz, who's a Tony Award-winning lighting designer. I mean, she's booked up for the next 4 years. She was my first choice. But but then they know other people that are coming up, and you interview them, and you get ideas, and you want to hear their ideas, and so that's a process within itself. And, it's not like we sit around. We know exactly how the lighting is going to be. We know exactly what the stage. We want that to be brought to us. And what is your idea? You're the one that's doing this, and that goes down with anybody from Lin Miranda when they were choosing set designers and all the things I mentioned. It's such a process, and it's such, you're constantly tugging every day. I mean, it doesn't leave me every day of my life. It's like the best plague I've ever had, but sometimes it's sort of like when people talk to me, I respond, I go, "Oh, selective hearing, are you?" But I have to pull myself out of it, and I do. I do have other things going on. I mean, obviously, I'm out on the road doing this, and I've got this television show called Lost Boys that's going to happen on the CW network as well, that I'm involved in the music. So, and that's been I'm not having to be there every second of the day with it, but it is a thing that I was brought into by Rob Thomas and Bill Binley and Heather Mitchell, who wrote it. And if you know anything about her, she wrote Scandal, and she one of Shonda Rhimes' head writers on Grey's Anatomy. And she is a big fan of mine, and she wrote a really good pilot. So it looks like it's going to go. It won't be till next year, but it'll have all these kind of things. It's set in present day. It's a whole new take on Lost Boys, but it's some of the characters have changed. So I think it could be something. I'm not a big guy on taking such a franchise and doing that, but I think that they've really tapped into something really cool with that. So it's going to be a Lost Boys fest for the next 10 years.
That's great. I can't wait to see that stuff, G. That sounds magnificent. Let's
hit our commercials.
Everyone is talking about CBD oil. Most of us know that CBD is a cannabis compound that has significant medical benefits, but does not make people high. Its benefits include pain relief, anti-seizure properties, anxiety relief, fights cancer, reduces the risk of diabetes, and it is even used as a sleep aid. Blue Leaf Naturals CBD and hemp products are full-spectrum hemp extract oils. They use only hemp grown in Kentucky, supporting Kentucky farmers and businesses and helping you and your family stay healthy and well. Blue Leaf Naturals, created with care from seed to shelf. Visit their website at blueleafnaturals.com. Blue Leaf Naturals, a Kentucky proud company.
Coyote Chris Sutton.
Shamanism.
Spiritual advisement.
Paranormal investigations.
Inspirational presentations.
Bringing light to the darkest places for over 20 years. Go to coyotechris.com to learn more.
And welcome back, everybody, to Scarefest Radio. Our special guest tonight is Mr. G. Tom Mac. Now, I had a scoop on G. Tom. He didn't. If we knew he was playing, neither one of us. I actually found out when he will be playing at the Scarefest. Of course, he'll be there that weekend for meet and greet and the autographs and all that good stuff. But everybody, he will be doing his performance at the Scarefest main stage Saturday prior to the costume ball. So 7:30, 8 o'clock. They haven't nailed that part down yet, but immediately before the costume ball, G-Tom will be playing. And now you're going to be playing, understand, some stuff from the musical, but also now you mentioned when I was talking to you earlier, you're going to be doing some other stuff too. Tell people what they can expect at your little mini concert there.
From Gerard Thomas McMahon? Yeah. G. Tom Mac, that's where I came from. Nobody could ever pronounce my name properly, so I just, at one point, just said, I'm just going. What I'm going to be doing is, obviously, as I said earlier, songs from the musical, the Broadway musical, A Lost Boys Story. But I'm also, playing some songs that I've written for other artists that have made, In Excess. I do I Need You Tonight. I wrote with In Excess back in the day. And I did a Kiss song. I did Is That You? God, what do I? There's some other things I do. I do a cover. I don't want to give it all away, but I do a couple of other covers of songs that other people have made, famous of mine. So we'll kind of integrate that midway into the show, and it always goes up. It's always good to have a bit of familiarity, and of course, I'm doing Cry Little Sister. And, yeah.
Well, now, two that are being asked about are the two songs of yours. People Are Strange and I Still Believe.
Yeah. What about those?
Are they in any way folded in to the musical or our concert that's coming up?
Are they going to be used? Is that
Yes.
what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I do People Are Strange, but I'm not going to tell you where I do it. But in the musical, that's one of the interesting things, just to bring that up, because I've been toying around with the idea, because I Still Believe was such a popular, it was quite a popular song within the film, as was People Are Strange. So we've been going back and forth with what that is. And but what we want to do is bring a whole freshness to it, if we're to do that. And some part of me wants to stay away from that. We do have the Tim Capello saxman guy in the film, but we have 5 buffed up guys that are doing this whole choreographer, all looking like Tim, that is right in Sleep All Day, Party All Night. They all have saxes. They all have the tight jeans on, and they're buffed to no end. And it's like they all look like twins. Like not twins, but what is it when there's 5 people?
Quintuplets, I believe. Is that quints?
There you go.
Yep, sure.
So it's an interesting place in the film. I mean, in the musical rather. But yeah, I love those songs. I mean, obviously they have their own iconic place. But yeah, we're figuring that out for the musical. I don't do I Still Believe because that's really Tim live. That's Tim's thing, and we've done some dates together around the globe. And he's a wonderful bloke, and I respect him dearly.
Okay, that
sticks to his.
Well, everyone, we're up to the end of the show. We're at the end of our interview tonight. To recap, in case you tuned in late, coming to Scarefest 2019, Scarefest XII, Scarefest 12, Tommy Flanagan, Beverly Randolph, Christina Camhey, Clu Gulager, and Tom Matthews. That did I butcher one of Chris is laughing at me.
Gulager.
Gulager, what did I say? Gulager?
Some sort of muddy thinking that.
No, Gulager. Actually, I think I thought I said that's what I said. But anyway, so we got that coming. We've got the film festival judging underway. We'll have the results out on that for everybody. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I especially want to thank Mr. G. Tom Mac for coming on the show and sharing with us tonight his history and musical experience. And we're looking very, very much looking forward to meeting you in person.
My pleasure, mate. I'm looking forward to meeting all these fans that are coming out, and I can guarantee you we will rock the night of the 14th, that Saturday. And yeah, I can't wait to perform songs from the musical and just do a whole night where we just take it to the limit, if you will. No limit. No limit.
Buy your tickets now, everyone. TheScarefest.com. General admission tickets will get you in to see Mr. G. Tom Mac. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Nice.